we're ratcheting up the insanity pretty much every day. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but what I can tell you is we are, I think, literally a match light away from some significant damage being done. But here's what people really aren't paying attention to, and that is we're in a 5G cognitive warfare. So are boots on the ground and bullets going to fly? They might not have to, because powers that be are battling from a cyber perspective. They're battling from a space perspective. They're battling for cognitive control. Well, if you take that and you do the gematria of it, change those numbers into letters, now you realize contained in pi is every word ever spoken, every thought to be spoken, have been spoken, currently being spoken, everything. And so if thoughts are things, which they are, it created this universe. If you go in and you're looking at the market and you're looking at frequency, then you got to think of vibration. So then all of a sudden you stumble across Nikola Tesla and the numbers 3, 6, and 9 and why they're important. They are.
Welcome to Discourse with Christian. I'm your host, Christian White, and joining us today is my friend Bart, who possesses I would say really a multifaceted background, and I'll let him introduce himself to us. And I'm looking forward, Bart, to diving into today's show with you.
I'm looking forward to our discourse, right? Um,
Absolutely.
well, thanks, Christian. Thanks for having me on. Happy Veterans Day, by the way. Back at you. And Christian and I, we met through a cold call. Christian called. I'm a part of a nonprofit called the Sup Vets, and he called and convinced me to take a two-car garage full of wetsuits and dry suits and everything, and give them away to needy organizations, which we did. And then I was able to have Christian down to our retreat, which I think was pretty powerful for him, and we can talk about that if you want. And then, we got to know each other, and he's done a great job with this podcast. And so we are actually spending a little bit of time trying to figure out how to introduce. Do we introduce that, I'm a business guy, kind of entrepreneur, a little bit better than average because, I've had a couple exits, not that big, but I've also lost a lot. But ultimately, I said, hey, Christian, let me introduce myself. So I just want everyone to know that I'm just a dude. I'm an American in his 50s. I'm married to my high school sweetheart. Been married for 35 years. 8 of them we dated before, so almost 43 years. I've been the only woman for me. So I'm a one chick kind of guy. Blessed with 4 amazing children and 7 grandchildren before I'm 60, which is crazy, right? And so, like I think a lot of your listeners, whether they swing left or swing right, swing down the middle, are all trying to figure out what the hell is going on right now with everything. And so Christian and I, we've had some amazing talks over the years, and he just said, "Hey, why don't you jump on the podcast?" I said, "All right, there's a lot to talk about." So really, Christian, I had a great time in the Navy. I love the Navy, but it was time to get out. I've had multiple fits and starts with business. I'm going to be moving into a business with the nonprofit foundations behind Thin Lines, and then the commercial organization Harvest Connect. Probably be doing that at the beginning of the year. Need to get some details wrapped around, but it'd be really cool because we'll be helping people. And so ultimately, as we enter into the end of the first year of, well, not really, we're getting close to first year of the Trump administration with the UFO of God, orbs flying around and earthquakes, and we're under the midst of an amazing solar storm right now. I'm not sure if you knew that. Big solar storms hitting us right now. Mercury went retrograde today, and ultimately today's Veterans Day on the portal of 1111, which everyone's freaking out about. So let's have a discourse. And did I miss out anything, you think? Or I really just want to connect with your listeners to say that I'm just a fellow American, man. There's nothing special about what I've done, what I'm going to do. I'm just another human going, what is going on? And I think I got a clue. Maybe.
Well, I know you have been enlightening me as relates to esoteric thought. And what's so interesting is when I first started the show. First of all, I started just bringing on anyone on the show. From it was very eclectic, and then I got more granular with kind of geopolitics and trying to understand the world and markets. And one of the themes that I have observed, and for those listening, I'm saying this ad nauseum, is the fact that you have an element within the government and outside of the government that is into the occult. They're into this stuff, and as I've tried to get it out of certain guests and such, people don't really talk about it. Understandably, I get it, but I think it's pretty profound if you have, call it a clique, a cabal, factions that are involved in occult or esoteric type stuff, and they're making decisions that are political in nature, financial in nature, that influence the media. I think it's pretty fascinating. I think it explains why the world is in the current state of affairs that it is in, despite all the technology, the advances that we have made as a society. I think it is absolutely profound, and to leave that out of the discourse is an error. And so, anyhow, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts as it relates to what you've been exploring and diving into, and kind of tying it into this crazy world that we're in today.
Yeah, so it goes back to the theme, right? I grew up a very happy childhood. Did you ever see The Americans? That maybe it's on Hulu or Amazon, something. Yeah, it's called The Americans, and it's about basically about the '80s in Northern Virginia, and they did such an amazing job because that's where I grew up. So it's funny now that I look back at it when I was growing up in Northern Virginia, Fairfax County, you know, about 20, 25 minutes outside the Beltway. It took about 40 minutes, 30 minutes to get into DC, right? It's a suburb of the District of Columbia. It was all CIA and FBI people. I'm looking back on it now, right? And so the Russians had this infiltrated, grown up since they were little kids, American family, but they were really Russian spies. And they did an amazing job at it. What I mean by that is like down to the cars, the commercials. My wife and I were watching. They're like, holy smokes, they nailed the '80s, right? And so, I grew up in the Cold War. I grew up with the amazing story of America and how Russia, 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 it's all wrong, right? And China, China, China. And, when we went on cruise and you joined the Navy, right? After 9/11, I was serving before that. But, we're thinking we're going out for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Um, appears a lot of that could have been on more than half truth, right? Maybe some of it was manufactured. And so our jobs as veterans now might not have been what we thought it was, and we might have been fulfilling some of the interests of this cabal or people that you talk about. It's a fascinating subject. Do I think it's real? Well, like we talked about the other day, I've kind of gotten to my world of 51-49. And what I mean by that is if I think, yeah, there might be some truth to that, I go 51. But I don't allow myself to go to 52. And Lord, don't I allow myself to go to 100% now. Because I think the only truth that exists is the summation at this moment of microsecond time, the summation of all 8.5 billion of us feeding source times 12 through our 12 cranial nerves. That's the truth. Other than that, we just have little parts of it, right? And we have little factoids of the facts, if you will. So I don't know if these factions exist. And I've gotten to the point where, at least for me, Christian, I don't care. Because ultimately I realize that the projection that I'm living is 100% equal to the amount of peace and love I have inside, right? And so Yeshua even says, go within, right? The kingdom of God is within. And so the more you meditate and, quite frankly, maybe have a couple psychedelic experiences, you get outside of the default network of where we're being programmed. And I do believe we are. When they even say it on TV, when the emergency broadcasting system goes out, boop, and then we're sorry to, now we continue with your regularly scheduled programming. They're actually telling you, right? That's what they say. It's a program. And so we have the masses all watching probably brilliant men in their own right, but these big, huge men destroy these avatars chasing a pigskin ball, getting paid millions and millions of dollars. And you just start thinking about it. And so everyone's working their asses off right now. And they end up spending a whole day Sunday drinking 15 beers, eating 40, hot dogs, nachos, maybe getting a fight and telling someone to F off because dudes are running after a football instead of having the energy of like going for a walk in the park, going surfing, being in nature, right? So We got it all upside down, I think, and I think some of that could be on purpose. And so when I take a look at my journey through this whole thing, when I got out of the Navy, I didn't even know the market existed, Christian. I just didn't think about it. And I was trying to sell, we were doing virtual reality software at the time, 20 years too early, really early. Great software, but it wasn't time. And that was one of my first very average entrepreneurial experiences. We did sell that company 8 years later. I think I got a check for like $16,000. No shit. Above zero, brother. Right. So in the end, I'm a better than average entrepreneur, right? So anyway, when we were doing that, I'm selling to my buddy up in the Ohio Air National Guard, and this alarm goes off. I'm like, what the heck is that? It's like, you don't want to know. I should have listened to him. And anybody says that to you, you probably should listen to him. You really don't want to know. Okay, I don't. Let's just move on. I didn't. I came around the corner and there was a chart of technical analysis, price and time. I went, whoa, what's that? And of course, my buddy said, you don't want to know. And I should have said, okay, I don't, and we'll just continue our conversation. But I did, and he started talking to me about technical analysis. So 24 years ago, I remember I can't say to this day, but I can remember today that I was sitting in our little house in Northern Virginia with Kathy and the girls. Didn't have JJ yet. And I looked up and I said, you know what? I think the market is going to teach me who I am. And my wife, Kathy, she's great. She's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And got on to, keeping the world here in check as I go off into Nala land being Barshin, right? But something was driving me that the market stops at a number for a reason. It ain't random. And so when you first start out, you start out the normal technical analysis stuff, stochastics, MACD, moving averages, all this stuff. That works, right? But it's all lagging. Okay, it's all lagging, which means the market needs to do something before it moves forward, goes up or goes down, right? Tracking? Then you find and you start discovering kind of coincident indicators, which is maybe volume. You can see the exact volume that's occurring right now, right? Stuff that's occurring right now, you're able to get a signal on it. But then ultimately, most people who open up a chart are going to go to leading indicators. And that's where you're able to project some of these moves, the growth, the retracement, and the project where it can go. And then all of a sudden you come across this number called 1.618, golden mean. And that is the number responsible for pretty much all of creation. So then you start going down some musical theory, and you figure out if all is vibration. I believe it is. And this is where people just got to start making the shift. If they want to be or not to be, it doesn't matter, right? But like my elbow is on my desk right now. Remember the dude in the Matrix when he's eating the steak? Remember that or no? I know this isn't real, but man, I'm enjoying this steak. You remember that? Well, all this is it's a frequency exchange. It's a mouse click, right? And our brains, our quantum computers are telling me, that elbow touching that glass is a vibrational signature. And once those two electrical circuits hit each other, our brains are quick enough to go, bam, that's an elbow touching a desk. Because it's done it a gajillion times this microsecond. Consciousness, right? What's wild is this wall behind me exists because I can see it and I'm putting my consciousness on it, right? You can't see my doors or my wall. To you, it doesn't exist, and it doesn't because you haven't put your consciousness on it. But as soon as we put our consciousness on it, all those atoms, all those protons, all those electrons, and it's Wonder Twin powers. Form, you ever see that one? Wonder Twin powers? I'm dating myself. But it is a male and a female, divine feminine, divine masculine, and they would run around fighting evil, shocking. And when they wanted to do something, they'd say, Wonder Twin powers activate in the form of Christian White. And they go, boop, and Christian White would appear. No shit. So when we start looking at all this going on, and I dove deeper and deeper into the Kabbalah, astrology, numerology, because I was like, why does this work? Well, Yeshua says even the very hairs on your head are numbered. I think they are. By the way, You know, they've recently found that hair molecules are actually receivers and transmitters. Huh. So why do you think we have hair on our brain? So it can feed the pineal gland. When Jacob saw the face of God and called the place pineal. So this little pea-sized pineal gland up there is a receiver and transmitter. And if we get into those meditative states, we can connect in different vibrational frequencies and get information, become emotionally copacetic and chill, right? So as I'm going down this process, I don't stumble upon it. I think it was part of my reason, like to really understand sacred geometry and music. And so, and it's square roots and 1 over those square roots. So the numbers 1 through 5, funny, 5 fingers, 5 toes. If you think about it, masculine, feminine, everything is polarity, and that's where I'm going to go somewhere with it, right? But why would you take the square roots, and why would you take 1 over the square roots? So the number 5, the square root's 2.236. 1 over that's 0.577. Those ratios show up in the market all over the place. What's going on, right? So when you start going down a little bit of musical theory, which music implies what? A vibration, right? What you find is the frequency of a string, the frequency of how we are communicating right now is equal to the square root of the length of the string or 1 over the square root of its tension, how tight it is. Ding dong, right? That's the frequency of a string. So square roots and 1 over those square roots. So we've got the numbers 1 through 5. Oh, by the way, per Edgar Cayce, we are the 5th root race. 5 fingers, 5 toes. Okay? Take the square roots of those, 1 of those square roots, those ratios, you will now find throughout everything, all of nature. Okay? The foundation of it's 1.618. However, 1.732, square root of 3, all of these ratios are found everywhere. Check it out. So this is called a proportional divider. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. You're not asking any questions, so I'm like, all right, man, he's thinking something. But this is a proportional
Just taking it
divider.
in.
I use it on my charts all the time. Okay, proportion. Well, the divine proportion, which is 1.618. So I'm a good-looking dude. I need to lose about 20 pounds, but I'm a good-looking dude, right? Why? Well, because I've just defined my chin to my forehead. Okay, see that? These divinely divide this length into the divine proportion. Prove it, Bart. Well, look at that. My nose. Look at that. My eye. It's perfect. Check this out. Here's my finger. See that? Boop. Right at the flange. Boop. Right at the flange, right? So you come across as you're working in the market and because the market's just vibrations, right? You come across these ratios, you start going, well, what? What? Okay, let me figure this out. So then ultimately you get to the brain. Okay, this brain, I'm still trying to work through this. People might believe me or not. And that, before we go on, we're only about 15 minutes into it. I could be completely wrong. So if people don't get all pissed off, you're wrong. You're probably wrong if you're so convinced you're right, because it's all gray right now, right? So 51:49. If you don't think I'm right, go 49. You don't have to go to 0, right? If you do like what I'm saying, go to 51 and then prove the rest to yourself. But I'm not an expert here. I don't have any MBA, PhD, any of that crap behind my names. I've just dove into this shit for 24 years, right? So I believe that these are not receptive devices, they're projection devices. Our brain is projecting this reality. And so your internal thought, your internal vibration is projecting the world you live in. What the brain sees, what the brain feels, okay, is all these fractals. So if you were the architect of this three-dimensional, it's a 3D game. I think we can all realize we do live in the third dimension. If there are more, then this is the third. I don't know if there's more. I've been told there are. Great, 51, right? I don't believe there are. Okay, 49. Just be chill. Everyone just chill out. Well, the brain, two aspects to it. One, they don't want to work hard. Our brains are lazy. They're like fighter pilots. They don't want to work hard, right? Um, they hate surprise. So if I'm talking to you and you're expecting the numbers 1 through 5, but 1 through 6 comes in and the brain wasn't expecting that, it's now going to go, huh? Crap, I don't recognize the number 6. I got to go figure out where it came from. Why was I surprised? I never want to be surprised again. Because everything that comes into it is a fractal based on the golden mean and the sacred geometry ratios. Okay? So now when you start thinking about, okay, what's this brain doing? How is it projecting it? That's when I started realizing everything that comes into our 12 cranial nerves, right, to feed the projection device. 12 cranial nerves, 12 disciples. No. 12 tribes of Israel? No. 12 labors of Hercules? They're not related. Come on. Work with me, right? So everything that comes in through those 12 cranial nerves is precisely harmonic and fractal to the first word. Let there be light. So in diving down and understanding frequencies and patterns based on sacred geometry and music for 24 years, I've studied it. It has really opened my eyes to look at who I really am, and where it all comes to play is we're living in the great game of polarity. So yes, we're living in the third dimension. Whether there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I don't know. Maybe there is, maybe there's not. But we're here now. What is going on? Why is there so much division? Why are people just unable to think clearly and everything? Well, just take a step back and understand who you are, right? You're a fractal of God. We all are. And we come through the portal, which is the Vescus Piscus, which is the female, which is sacred geometry. Did you know that that's where the ratios actually come from? So if you start looking at the 6 days of creation, well, those are simply they could be the 6 first circles of the seed of life. Seed of life becomes the flower of life becomes Metatron's cube. Metatron's cube is responsible for all the geometry, supposedly in all dimensions. So when you hear, let there be light, think of that as a frequency. Tracking? So from the point of singularity, God said, let there be light. Let there be light. That first thought stopped. The first radius was created. And how do you tie that radius together? The circle. So there's your first circle, right? Then God says, well, it's pretty cool. How can I, matter cannot be destroyed. It can only what? Change forms. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, polarity. So if I'm going to create more, I have to replicate it. And that's where the two circles come from. That is called the Vescus Piscus, that intersection. That's called the bladder of the fish. That was the age of Pisces that we just came out of. That's why Jeshua is a fisher of men. Jeshua says, cast your nets to the right side of the boat, the right brain, the creative brain, the co-creative force, not the left brain, the masculine brain, the thinking algebraic engineering. No, to the right side, and perhaps the robber on the right, the robber on the left. Robber on the right, you will be with me to eternity. So when you start thinking of that first circle and you start putting those circles together, when you take those verticals and horizontals of the Vescus Piscus, you get the square roots of 2, 3, 4, and 5 and their inverses. So that let there be light, that first primordial thought, the Big Bang, if you want to call it that, I don't know, right? That is the first seed vector creation. And here's where it gets really wild. Where or when does God say that? In God, I don't see him, her, I guess, since we've got to be, DEI. I don't know what God's pronouns are. Maybe just pro. I don't know, I'm having fun with it, obviously. But what I do know, God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omnibenevolent, and omniscient. How we want to define that, Joshua, Muhammad, John Smith, I don't know, right? But for humans. And oh, by the way, to the DEI and that insanity that I made fun of, I don't care. You're still a human, right? So we're all in this thing together. So when you think of that circle, that initial vector, well, God says, "I am" in Exodus 3:14, 3.14 pi. I know it's a coincidence. So now you take pi, right? Transcendent irrational number, those digits will never repeat, right? It's just gone. Numbers, 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 numbers. Well, if you take that and you do the gematria of it, change those numbers into letters, now you realize contained in pi is every word ever spoken, every thought to be spoken, have been spoken, currently being spoken, everything. And so thoughts are things, which they are. It created this universe when God said, "Let there be light." These are projection devices. I love rap music, but they said fuck the police 20 years ago, and guess what? We're fucking them, right? We said veteran suicide, 22 a day, 22 a day. We're focusing on suicide. We're focusing on suicide. Guess what? Now it's 44. Why? Because we are focusing. We are speaking this. It's 44 a day now. Why don't we focus on 1.8 million of us veterans are choosing life? I bet you the number will start to go down because collectively our consciousness is focusing on that instead of the death. So when you start thinking about it, this transcendental number pi, which Martin Armstrong has figured out time cycles on, right? I am, God is saying, I am it all. And oh, by the way, we have the three because it's the third dimension. Hello. I'll stop.
So yeah, yeah. There's a myriad of things from which I can, that I'm curious about that you mentioned. Gosh, where do I start?
I don't
The
know,
first one.
brother.
What's up?
I said, I don't know, brother.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm totally having a blank. I'm gonna probably
That's all right. It
edit
happens to
part
me
of
all
that
the
out.
time. We just kind of went through the history of the world in about 17 minutes, so it's all.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I mean, one of the things I'll bring up here is, on my show, it tends to be, as others have observed, kind of more doom and gloom, right? Right. I'm talking about World War III or this or that, and I do sometimes think about, okay, um, am I helping to ha- have that materialize by putting that out there, so to speak? So it's like, is there a way I can couch this in a way that's more positive or maybe less, stirring the pot for. So I try and think of that when I create a title, because to your point, what you focus on, you bring about, more or less. And I believe that. um okay, so you're obviously making the connections between, these esoteric, uh or this esoteric thought and information. um, who and by what means did you acquire this, information?
Yeah, it's really crazy, right? So first off, to answer your question, we, not just you, we might be creating this craziness because we're feeding into it. I agree with that, right? But don't beat yourself up because I think a lot of us don't even realize we're doing it. No one, we're not taught it, right? And maybe that's where it's maybe on purpose. We really need people to understand that going within and projecting happiness and love and joy, shocking that you kind of find it, right? So I was going to be a priest in high school. I was really seriously thinking about it until I met Kathy. Leave it at that. But I was really getting deep into I loved reading about church history, Roman Catholic. I'm a Reformed Catholic now, but so I started kind of, getting into a lot of the history from back around, 2,000 years ago into the Middle Ages and stuff. And so I had kind of an interest of it, but ultimately, Christian, it was the market. All right. So I come around, everything is vibration. All right. What the heck does that mean? Well, if you're going and you're looking at the market and you're looking at frequency, then you got to think of vibration. So then all of a sudden you stumble across Nikola Tesla and the numbers 3, 6, and 9 and why they're important. They are, right? And so it's ultimately from something conceptually about the market, who we are, right? I believe like Starbucks, everyone's going to trade Starbucks. Well, anybody who thinks Starbucks has Starbucks on their mind is putting off a frequency of Starbucks. That's just the way it is. So without us knowing at the quantum level, millions of people, billions of people, who knows, that have anything to do with that vibration of Starbucks are meeting at the quantum level. And when the price of Starbucks from a fear and greed cycle is happening, right? There's fear and greed. There's never just fear. That's why the market. There's never just greed. Fear always has to take place. Why? Because everything is neutral. All waves cancel out. We're living in a world of polarity, right? So it would be this, concept of time. If you're going to study time, you're going to have to go to the planets, whether that's from an astronomical or an astrological, right? It's kind of like science and spirituality. Science, astronomy. Nobody's going to argue that the orbital period of Venus is fixed, and it will be for time immortal. That's astronomy. Astrology, Venus, the mother, the rising star, where's your house sign, all that, that's spiritual, that's subjective. So you've got both objective and subjective polarity. So when you start studying these concepts, and I wanted to understand why I could be in my bunny slippers looking at the Great British Pound versus the United States dollar, the foreign currency markets, I think it's trillions of dollars a day. When I was starting to learn currencies, every stock market, bond market, commodity market would have to work continuously for 90 days to equal 1 day, of liquidity on the foreign currency markets, right? It's massive. It's all that really matters. S&P, who cares? Currencies are everything. And it would stop on a dime based on a pattern that I came up with in my living room in bunny slippers. And that was my fault, Christian. Have I made money? Yes. Have I lost a lot? Yeah. I've made more than I've lost. But I really didn't push the I believe button until about a month ago, believe it or not. And that was in that square out I was talking to you about. But ultimately, and then I had years of pause as I just kept going down deeper and deeper and deeper. But what I can tell you is probably every day for the past 24 years, I've been reading something about this. Could it have been an obsession? Yes. Could it have been addiction? Sure. Or could it have been an individual, just a regular human dude on a quest to understand who am I really? Right. And that's where I get all these things. So after 24 years, I'm not claiming I'm an expert. I'm just claiming I've spent a lot of time. And for me, what resonates is we are all connected. We are all one. I am, funny, a fractal of God experiencing this creation. And I'm feeding my experiences back into source. I 100% believe in Yeshua. I don't say Jesus because J didn't exist back then. It didn't. Jesus of Nazareth, wrong. Nazareth didn't exist. Now, Jesus was a Nazarene, right? And so this is 2,000 years. We're rewriting our history after 250, right? So, and then, we got these guys, I think, hopefully there was some divine feminine presence there, but I don't think there was, called the Council of Nicaea in 325 that said, these are the books forever, right? And we all just take it. Well, I was talking to you, and again, I'm not questioning. I believe Jesus, Yeshua, is an ascended master directly connected to source in ways that we can be and are. We just don't know it yet. I absolutely do. I believe. The story, there might be some tweaking. Case in point, the most seminal event, whether you're a Jew, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Hindu, one of the most seminal events in the history of humanity was the crucifixion. And so one would think that if the Savior of the world Probably is. Again, I'm not saying it. I believe. Just don't know if I believe the narrative. Kind of like what's going on right now, right? I'm just questioning. And if Joshua shows up and says, sorry, man, I'm just a human. You could have told me earlier, right? In a dream or something. But if you go look at each one of the Gospels, none of them have Jesus' last words the same. Kind of a
Yeah,
big deal. Did you look it up?
I'm sorry. No, I know I did not.
Oh, I
No.
thought you were. Yeah. So right there you go, huh. And then when you start looking at the different lineages, none of them are correct either. Okay, right? And then if the world is based on polarity, I think it is. Every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And Jeshua came in the male figure, the male, the masculine divinity. Where's the female divinity? Where's it been? Catholic Church wrote Mary Magdalene out, made her a whore. The Knights Templar actually worshipped Mary Magdalene. Right? Doesn't take the story of Jeshua away. It just, are we getting the complete story, right? And so to go back to your other point, so where did I get this? Michael S. Jenkins, Edgar Casey, Constance Brown, Larry Pesavento, Joe DiNapoli. If you're going to study these leading indicators based on Fibonacci, sacred geometry, and music, you'll just start stumbling over all the different books. Like I got it right here, Plato and the Quran. Fascinating. Like the biblical, like Abraham was 23,800 years old, whatever. That's actually, I forget which one it is, but the patriarch ages are all planetary cycles, right? Never get that taught, right? And so to answer your question, like if there's this crazy cabal or great cabal, I don't know, life's pretty good. How do you deal with it? First off, find out who you are, believe who you are, but don't let anybody else tell you. You are your guru, right? Just close your eyes and ask. Two, when you figure out who you are and you figure out this whole thing is divine and every single wave cancels it out, everything. That's why when we die, we flatline, right? To God, all the waves are neutral. Then what do you have to be afraid of? And why would you ever give your sovereignty as an individual human, allowing God to experience this incredible world through your eyes, to anybody else? You wouldn't. So that's what they're afraid of. And so we're all just kind of waking up. And once you see and understand the polarity, now instead of saying, burn Diddy, you go, okay, man, there's a part of me in him. How? I don't know. But we are all truly connected, sorry. So how do we give justice in a non-judgmental way? Because where there's the Diddy, there's the equal and opposite of that, which is boundless, unbelievable love and caring for all sentient creatures. So if you see the darkness, close your eyes and find where the brightness is and go that way. They're here, or that from Anne Villehor. The light, don't go into the light. Well, go into it. So it's all balanced. It's all perfect, right? And we might not realize it, but it's perfect. So that's how I'm going. That's how I'm dealing with after all this studying. I mean, I just saw somewhere that the Catholic Church paid out $8 billion in sexual harassment reparations to victims. Sorry, got a tough time going to church in the Catholic Church. That's evil. But the Catholic Church has done some amazing things, which has balanced that evil by all the good it's done too. So there's evil and darkness within inside of all of us. So that's what I say at the camp. Come to terms with that evilness and everything kind of goes away. You have to have some darkness in you to balance the light. Your job as a human is to contain and understand them and love your neighbors like yourself with all your heart, all your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself, and know we are all one. So if you take care of yourself, take care of what's going on inside you, and don't worry about anybody else, because they're all just projections of what internal conflict you have anyway. Once you become emotionally copacetic, guess what? You really don't get spiked too much anymore. 5149. And I think the truth will be revealed soon enough. Sorry, man, I'm going off.
Well, I figured I'd let you, kind of
I don't know where this is coming from.
unpack. Yeah. So as it relates to what's going on today in the world, there's a lot of talk of, that, you know, kinetic talk, conflict and things of that nature. How does that all fit in with kind of like fourth turning and this esoteric knowledge that you're armed with, so to speak?
Well, it's a great question. China, you can Google it, we can show it, right? China claims that they have a radar that's impenetrable to stealth, right? They can see stealth. Well, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense with quantum computers and all that capability. Anything flying through the air is going to put a signature out. You just, right, unless we're cloaking them, which I guess you can do. Um, and then Russia, did you see the radioactive tsunami submarine missile they got? Yeah, Google that one. Whew, it's like a 1,500-foot wall of water, of radioactive water. Okay, that's good. And then they just tested a nuclear air-to-air or maybe air-to-ground missile that can go into low Earth orbit and cruise around. It's nuclear powered and wait to get coordinates, and then it just kind of goes and bomb stuff. So we're ratcheting up the insanity pretty much every day. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but what I can tell you is we are, I think, literally a match light away from some significant damage being done. And so the more we buy into the conflict, right? My best friend, Rabbi, his oldest son, and they wanted me to do the wedding. I couldn't because it was COVID and I couldn't go. And then I found out I couldn't do it in Virginia. I'm a rabbi. I told you that, right? I do the Universal Church. I've done a bunch of weddings. A priest rabbi. I'm kind of non-denominational, It's a joke. Anyway, he married a beautiful Russian Nastya. She's beautiful, right? I don't have any issues with the Russian people. Do you? What the hell, right? Quite frankly, the Donbass region, it's all Russians. We were terrorizing them, right? So nothing is what it seems. And but the level of destructive forces that we can bring to bear against each other kinetically is unlike anything anyone can really imagine. But here's what people really aren't paying attention to, and that is we're in a 5G cognitive warfare. So are boots on the ground and bullets going to fly? They might not have to, because the powers that be are battling from a cyber perspective. They're battling from a space perspective. They're battling for cognitive control. I mean, I don't know any of this. I really don't follow it too much. But again, I come across some interesting articles that all of a sudden Israel was paying what, $6,000 or $7,000 a post for influencers that would just say they're doing great. Well, why do you need to do that? Right? The cognitive warfare. And I think we talked about it once before, War of the Worlds. Well, you just got to, again, think about the timing. You got the Federal Reserve created around 1913 or something, right? And then you got, I think it was Rockefeller, when Rockefeller came in with, who was the oil baron? And oils got into pharmaceuticals, and
Oh, I'm
it's the
blanking out
one
right now. Let me re
Rockefeller. Yeah, me too. All right. So
Yeah.
right around that turn of the century, Federal Reserve gets created. Did you know in the early 1900s, it was predominantly all holistic hospitals? Yeah. And then pharma kind of showed up. So pharma, money, Great Depression happens. I wonder why, right? Droughts, throw some money in, all these socialistic programs start, and then, hey, I wonder if we can control their minds. Hey, go get Orson Welles to do War on the Worlds. So, staring at a radio, sitting around the campfire, I don't know, back in the days when you had to do this for heat, Orson Welles talked about an alien invasion. Tens of thousands of people freaked out, thought it was real. That was just listening with your ears. Now, for 20 years easily, Christian, we have been bombarded 24/7, 365 with programming. The phone, your eyes, what you're hearing, what we're eating. They have ultimate control. They've done an amazing job. So I do think that whatever is happening, whether it's one single couple families like this little cabal, or it's just this mass psychosis that's come in upon us, something is occurring, right? So what do you do? Well, you go in, it's OODA loop, right? Observe, orient, decide, act. You got to go out and get outside information to help yourself reorient, because right now all you're getting is the same information all the time, all the time. And a lot of that information, unfortunately, might not be as true as we thought. So go outside of the mainstream. Don't trust all the narratives you're fed, and start just paying attention for yourself. And then you claim your power. And then you go back to the framers, life. So you're guaranteed, once you're born, nobody should take it from you, to breathe. Right? And you're guaranteed liberty. Why? Because you're unique. There's no fingerprints that match. So I'm a number. It's like Sims. It really is, right? But these fingerprints that are my vibrational frequency imprint this time in this world right now, they're mine. They're unique. We are not the same. We're not the same age. We're not the same build, right? So liberty, you go do whatever the fuck you want. You're guaranteed it. And government, get out of my way. Let me do it. Okay. But then here's where, if you're not convinced the framers weren't brilliant, some of them were in less than age than you. They're in their 20s, these guys. It's brilliant, the vision they saw. When they signed that Constitution, they knew they were done. They were done, right? They were dead. They're going to get hung, bankrupted, whatever. But yeah, let's do it. But if you look at the framers wrote, if you can't understand that this is a game of polarity, it's the pursuit of happiness. It's not guaranteed. That's the only thing that's not guaranteed. Why? Because you don't know happiness if you've never not had it. Right? How do you know love if you've never known hate? How do you know joy if you've never known sadness? So there's that polarity. So as it keeps ratcheting up, you can focus your thoughts and minds on the ratcheting of the negativity of the split that they've done a great job doing, right? Or just take a step back and go, okay, where's the balance of that? I'm going to go there. Polarity. It's just the pursuit of happiness. None of it's guaranteed. And how dare you think you're guaranteed anything? The only thing you're guaranteed is that whatever you feel, there's an opposite of it. Whoa.
Well said. Well said.
I'm
Wow. Yeah.
sorry. I'm
I'm just
just
gonna,
free willing, bro.
yeah, I'm just taking it all in.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
So
So yeah, it's really crazy right now. However, that craziness is balanced by peace. Go find it. I don't know if you can. I found it.
you mentioned about, and I'm still, I feel like I have perhaps kind of a very basic understanding of some of this. Circling back to kind of this esoteric stuff that you're alluding to, but by no means am I some pro or fill in the blank on it. You mentioned about the Kabbalah, okay, and then you mentioned Gematria, and these are things that I hear about. I guess could you, for those in the audience who are not familiar with it, could you unpack that, and then also how that ties in with our world?
Yeah, you ask good questions. Sure. Ultimately, they all point to the same thing, right? All is one. We're all fractals of God, right? And everything is vibration. And so when you start looking at the Kabbalah, and then if you start thinking of, what's the opposite of a letter? A number, right? And so when you blend a letter and a number, what do you get? Well, that's why the Hindus go like that, right? Divine feminine, divine masculine, you bring them together, they're one. So, like with gematria, the letters are the numbers. One of the first languages that we know of, Hebrew, that's why they read right and left. Okay? So now you start thinking the chants that the monks used to do in the Middle Ages. By the way, we're finding that music and frequency is an amazing healer, right? And then you look at some of the, Middle Ages churches and everything, those beautiful stained glass windows. Those are just cymatics. Those are the frequencies of the sound becoming geometry. That's why they called them organs. So not only were churches places of worship, they're also places of cleansing. And when the organist played different vibrations, different aspects of your avatar, because that's all it is, different aspects of your body were healed. So now, if we just step back and we think, how about those monks chanting? Why aren't they speaking words? Because if you take the gematria of those chants that they used to sing, what you find is their frequencies. Their frequencies for harmony, their frequencies for healing, their frequencies for health. Those what the chants are, and that's why they resonate with us so well. Because each one of our body parts has a frequency. Everything does. It's all vibration. And so if you can get a harmonic sound to permeate through your body, what happens? It becomes copacetic. Does that make sense? So as you're looking at this entire field, all of the ancient texts are pointing to this. We were just taught Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared is c squared, and that's it. We were never taught that. What if you keep taking those and consecutively put them together? Holy smokes, you've created the Pythagorean triangle spiral, which is one of the spirals that nature follows, which is responsible for all growth and retracement, right? So we were taught the Pythagorean theorem, but we weren't taught the why or the what, right? Were you ever taught what the letters 1 through 8 represent? No. There's actually an amazing story. We could go on for another hour about that, right? So all I've done is taking what we were given and just gone a little bit deeper to understand, right? Now I like the parting of the Red Sea. Could that just really be the parting of the right brain and the left brain? 5149, right? We're finding that there might be, I don't know, a nuclear power plant under the Great Pyramid. What? But what's even more what is the latitude's exactly to the speed of light in meters per second. And it sits on the exact center landmass of the Earth. So why weren't we taught that in math? Why weren't we taught that in geometry? Hey, here's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we're going to show you how it works inside the Great Pyramid. Imagine sitting there, in third or fourth grade with, Susie next to Joey Boo, and the teacher's like, "Hey, and Susie, you actually are a portal for a fractal of God." And Joey Suzu, you are part of that. What a difference! Instead of you got to get a fake ass now, I think that's the thing, and Botox, and fake. Stop. You're perfect as you are. So we just got to kind of get back to basics, and the basics were that information that I think has also been hidden. Why we were talking about it, right? It's been a divine masculine, and I'm not saying it's time for the rise for the women. No, divine feminism within inside of us too. It has to be. Remember, it's all balance. Our physical presence is as a male, but we have both divine feminine, divine masculine qualities. Everybody does. And so that's the rising of the divine feminine right now. It's not women power. I would be. It's I got three daughters. You know that. But all I'm trying to say is it's within all.
Yeah, and that's yeah. There's obviously a lot I gotta get caught up on as it relates
And
to
disagree with, right? Tell me
yeah.
I'm wrong. I don't care. I'll go, okay, I'm 51, you're 49. Put me 1 point over to the fence on the 49. I'll go. Again, I don't know. The more deeper I got into it, the more I realized, man, I don't really think I have a clue of what's going on. I have some thoughts about it, but yeah, what's your opinion? I'm interested to learn more. And I'd also like to talk to 8.4999 billion of us to find out what they think. Because it's not just one person's opinion. It's just not that way anymore. It's a great world. Learn to live in it, or learn to balance that harmony of the good and the bad.
Yeah, I definitely subscribe to that duality that you're inferring, that polarity. I remember reading one of Wayne Dyer's works, and of course he's into the kind of the Taoist stuff, and I yeah, Christianity saying light darkness. So I think there's certain themes that are, I guess the term is called motive. It's like a motive that you see throughout. Um, yeah, and you mentioned about Martin Armstrong, and it sounds like, if I understood you, with the information, how the cycles and things of that nature. So yeah, I think it's very underrated. This is a very underrated topic, especially when you marry finance with esoteric.
Yeah, and I've borne the brunt of that too. Get out. What are you talking about? I'm like, okay, people just aren't going to get it. They'll just have to see it to believe it. But on that note, with time and everything, one of the things, Christian, before we wrap it up, is I really encourage people to go look at Alan Green's The America Codes. If any of what we've talked about is interested to people who are listening, everything that we've talked about is embedded in our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and Bill of Rights. It's unbelievable, and so I'm just trying to get the word out. And the bottom line of the America Codes, information that's been passed down for tens of thousands of years, and it was basically we've been looking at these mistakes, air quote mistakes, in the Declaration of Independence for 250 years. And Alan, 249, Alan has discovered these encryptions that have Trump, Harris, 9/11, moon landing, Martin Luther King, Pope Leo, Pope Leo's full, middle, and last name. You're going to have Alan on the show. I'll get you to get him on there. And so, what? And so then you start stepping back a little bit. Well, you go back to his work with Shakespeare, which was 20 years. And he's wide open about it, but he says, "You ready for this, listeners? I hope they listen this far. At least clip this part, and make sure people hear it." He says he was meditating. He was in his room in LA in his condo, and three extraterrestrials floated through the walls and started operating on his brain. I'm just saying what he said. 5149, brother, right? He hates Shakespeare, hates it. Next day, Buddy asked him to go to a Shakespeare play, and he's like, "Oh shit." So he goes to Shakespeare play, and then he hears, I forget what he said, but he hears one of the verses, and it just kind of click, and that led to 20 years of decoding Shakespeare, which is basically the story of Isis and Osiris, Hamlet. It's the same story, man. So then he figures out that John Dee, Sir Francis Bacon, um, they claim they were communing with angels. Look it up. Just Google it. I'm not, right. John Dee had multiple near-death experiences. Well, what's very fascinating is he claimed to be talking to the angels from the book of Enoch. You've heard of that, right? What's starting to come out all over the place? Well, you got Representative Luna on Joe Rogan's show. I've read the book of Enoch 4 times. The book of Enoch is still in the Egyptian Christian Bible, and it tells the story of big Anunnaki, right? All that. Holy smokes, which all kind of seems to be working out. So then I'm reading Dan Brown's latest book, Go Get It, Secret of Secrets. It's all about consciousness. And I turn the page, and there's a whole section about the Enochian language, the Book of Enoch, right? So it's like coming out into our consciousness. So on a hunch, he takes that same encryption technique. It's called the Enochian tables, right? There's 624 characters in the Enochian tables. You ready for this? And Shakespeare was born June 24th. Come on, man. You tracking? So he kind of gets a download. Hey, why don't you go check out these documents? 111. What's today? 3 in 1. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Judicial, legislative, executive, Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence. So he finds that the Constitution has 6,771 characters. So what? Well, that's the anagram of 1776. Then the games began. So we're going to get to it about time. Now, he also goes to the Gettysburg Address. Gettysburg Address, the first half of it was written, right? Lincoln hadn't finished the second half of it. It was handwritten. And Allen gets his hands on the exact original copy and puts the Enochian table around it. And you can see where Lincoln erased and changed a letter. If he hadn't done that, the entire encryption would have fallen apart. Literally, I think he was divinely guided. In the Gettysburg Address, 13th Amendment, slavery is wrong, I do not err. Lincoln, Trump, not Trump Tower, Ford's Theater, assassination. What? And so, if time is not linear, if the only thing that exists is now, it's all happening. That's why human nature never changes, because it's all happening at the same time, just at different vibrations. And so somehow the script of our country is written and encrypted in our founding documents. And there's more. I could go on and on about what he's found and discovered. And it's called the America Codes. And so, again, the bottom line is we're all one. So ISIS, they think they're right. We think we're right. We're just mirror images of each other. Both of us playing darkness and both of us playing light. And their perception is that we're evil, and our perception is that they're evil. And we are. But we're also light. We're also good because we're evil. So as soon as we all figure that out, we can go, oh, okay, we no longer have to be that. Let's just elevate it. I think that's what's happening.
Fascinating
Did you say
topic.
lost me?
Yeah.
Because I think I lost myself.
No. I'm just taking it all in.
Yeah, it's like literally you go anywhere you go, and I know you're a voracious reader, and just anywhere you go, they're all the paths are gonna. We're all one. That's where it's leading. Some of us took a better path to get there. Others are, God, I got to go up the Himalaya. All right, okay, but we're all going to get there. And I have to be around when it happens. If not, I'll have to do it again. I don't know. But it brings a level of calmness when you realize that, man, whatever's triggering me is just something that's going on inside me. Right? So if that MAGA Maha person's spiking you, quit getting angry at them and look at why. If the crazy left-wing liberal is spiking you, take a look at yourself and figure out why. Because when you figure out why, she, he, or it on the left or she, he, and it on the right won't bug you anymore. It goes away, just dissolves. But people are incapable of it. Why? Because they're controlled through their observations, through the media, through the programming, through the Netflix shows they're watching. All of that is just. Do you remember in the movie theaters they actually proved that they were doing subliminal messages to get us to go get Cokes? Do you remember that, or you were too young? Yeah, look it up. Like in
Hmm.
the 80s, they'd flash Cokes like every microsecond. I'm like, yeah, I'm thirsty. I'm gonna go get a Coke. Yeah, look it up. Subliminal programming in movies.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. We all knew like, oh, that's kind of cool. I just don't want a Coke anymore. But David, did this go where you wanted it to go? I can't believe we've talked for an hour, dude.
No, 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 no. This is no. I'm just going down the rabbit hole with you. Yeah. When you mentioned yeah, when you mentioned the subliminal stuff, you reminded me of some of the CIA stuff. Like I think it was Operation Paperclip. With the media and I mean that's a whole nother topic that we could say for another time. Is all the influences that have gone on precipitated by alphabet agencies and the to an extent criminal element within those intelligence agencies and yeah, I mean I'm thinking of Gary Webb. I'm thinking of Mossad and a lot of these other wonderful organizations. So
But
yeah,
remember, though, remember they believe they are,
yeah. So then let me ask you this
and
then,
maybe
Bart.
they are.
Sure.
If they think
So
they are, they are.
the vibe that I'm getting from you is that given kind of where society is, again, some say, with the bubble in the market, and a lot of people are hurting around the world, because of inflation, because of a myriad of factors, the wealth gap, you know, tension in over in Ukraine, Russia, exacerbating and such. Do you see things
Did you see
precipitating?
Japan? Did you see Japan today? That was a pretty bold move, what they said. Sorry I interrupted you. I was just thinking
No,
through.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, their prime minister said, "Hey, so you know, part of their internal constitution is we will use our forces when we feel basically a seminal threat, right? Like an existential threat. Uh, other than that, and being attacked, right? They after World War II, they've been pretty mellow, but they need to have a military for defense of their homeland. But they're like, no, no, never again are we gonna get involved. We got nuked, right? Which whether that was good or not, who knows, right? There's always polarity. She came out today and said, if China invades Taiwan, that is a seminal event. We will not stand by. Whoa. Yeah. So to your point, it's just let's just we just keep going up. So
Hmm.
sorry I interrupted you. Keep going. Sorry.
No, yeah, okay. So yeah, and I feel like you have to understand the the call it esoteric occult, what have you, faction or factions that are trying to foment this. So I think that's interesting. I don't know if you have any parting thoughts, but I'll just say I feel like it's like a pendulum, and I feel like there will come a point where people kind of revert back to kind of like a pre 1950s world. I'm not saying everything in that time period was perfect or whatever, but in terms of kind of going back to more of a traditional nuclear family, people being frugal and you know what I mean, like just not what you see depicted in Hollywood and such. I feel like that pendulum, and I guess it ties in with the pi and Fibonacci and the sacred geometry that you referenced earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. I didn't live back then. I think it at least we're told it appeared great. Um, but was it? I don't know. It sure looks like it was.
Yeah.
So my, you know, my hope is that as this pendulum swings back, again, the Constitution is incredible. I don't care where you are, what side of the road you swing politically or anything. Just read it. It's brilliant. It's the summation of all these philosophers, from Descartes, Plato, John Locke. These guys were brilliant. What I hope is that I don't know if there's a traditional family, but Kathy and I are still married. I think they said Kathy read it to me today, 1.8% of the high school sweethearts stay married or ever get married or anything, right? Um, how many men do you know that have only been with one woman, right? It's kind of odd, to be honest with you. My wife thinks you're kind of weird, but um, yeah, I am. They call me the Bartian for a reason. But where I'm going with it is, I don't know if the 50s were that great in this concept of nuclear family, right? So what we were talking about earlier, a couple days ago was, what does nature do? There are some love doves, and the doves, they stay together forever. Others, they got jaguars running around banging all the female jaguars, having litters of jaguar families all over Africa, right? What does nature do? And nature's perfect. So is this concept of marriage really a tax? Sure seems like it, right? So what I hope is to to paint the picture of the world that you want to live in as the 50s. I would just say let's change it a little bit to you, Christian White, and Joey two times, whatever. You're able to exist in a world of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I don't feel like I have true liberty in my country anymore. That's wrong, right? Relatively speaking, I'm pursuing my happiness. It really hasn't affected me yet, right? But if your pursuit of happiness is being LGBTQ, go for it, right? We're all freaks. Let your freak flag fly, right? I have two gay brothers, and one was in a committed relationship for decades, and the individual cheated on my brother and got AIDS, and my brother had unprotected sex with his lover for 2 years and never got AIDS. I still don't know how it happened, right? And then my brother stayed with him until he died, and he withered away. Talk about commitment. How many heterosexual relationships would do that, right? And where there's God, there's love. So, yeah, I think two dudes can love each other, right? Do your thing. But don't ask me to agree, disagree, just, hey, that's your liberty. That's your pursuit of happiness. Do it, but do it as a good human. And they do, right? So that's what my hope is, that we all are accepting of our unique, individualized spirit that we're running around in these avatars with. And we get to go pursue happiness. And some of us will find it, some of us won't. But ultimately, enjoy the pursuit of it, because here's all I'll end it. This came to me with Kathy and I. We're talking about our relationship. 43 years we've been together. We still feel like we're up leveling it. And, we're talking about our grandkids, and we're talking about what we talked about today on this podcast. What world am I going to leave? I got 7 grandkids, and I cannot look at any of the politicians in our country and I can say that I respect them. What? And then I look at what's happened to our military. Uh, you know, there was a podcast I was watching. I'm not even going to mention it because I could get associated with it pretty quickly. But there was a podcast I was watching last night, a very powerful podcast, and he was talking about how a lot of the officers weren't taking care of their men. Holy smokes! What was going on? And those officers were people that I know that I was served with, or if I stayed in, I would have. So everybody's got this polarity to deal with. And I think as we get angry and as we spike on different people, we're spiking at our darkness that you don't want to deal with individually. So what's snapping you about that person on the left or that person on the right is really the darkness that you're not going and dealing with yourself, that you fall in love with. And then guess what? It doesn't bug you anymore. See where I'm going with it? So ultimately, as I was talking to Kathy about what we're doing, it came to me that I truly believe these are dimensionally limited meat suits. The most powerful, unbelievable quantum computer meat suits in the world. Think about what you came from. And they are here to hold your spirit. 1. 2, this is a 3-dimensional game. That's hard. It's not easy. It's a 3-dimensional game, holographic, matrix of consciousness, all frequencies. And we come down here and battle it out in the world of polarity. However, just like we create video games, and what are you always trying to do? Go to the next level, right? Get to the final level, right? How do you really do that once you've played the game enough times, like we have? We've been doing this for eons, probably, Christian. Billions of years. Do you know that 1 year of God is 4.32 billion years? It's a Buddhist or Hindu thought. That one day of Brahma. 4.32 billion years is one day. Have we even lived a day? So the more you play this game, and maybe we got about 20 years between us. Maybe I get a little older. I don't know. You're pretty um, foundational and philosophical yourself. I love it. Is cheat codes. Once you got through level 9 of, I don't know, what was the driving one JJ and I used to do, right? Well, you don't go and play 1, 2, 3. You figure out where the cheat codes on each level. Hey, I just got to go eat this dinosaur over here, and I'll go to level 3 like that. Remember? There's little cheat codes, and we've left them for ourselves. So we're at the final level of the game. It's so awesome. And now I believe that the ultimate in cheat codes is what we've been talking about for the past hour. Oh, and we're not learning anything. I think we're remembering. Oh, that's why the Great Pyramids in the center landmass of the Earth. That's why in its base are encoded the foot, the Egyptian cubic, and the meter, our measuring systems. That's why we put it on the exact latitude equal to the speed of light in meters per second. What? That's why it's a 400 to 1 replica of the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon. Why? Oh, because the Moon's 400 times closer to the Sun than we are. Why? Oh, so it can exactly fit an eclipse. It's exact. A little further, we'd burn up. A little closer, we'd freeze. It's perfect. Control our gravity. I mean, it's the perfect matrix. So we did this. Start remembering it, and everything will start falling into place. So find your cheat code. I found mine. Somehow it was sacred geometry, the markets, and music. We might have a buddy of mine who's a plumber, and he's underneath there, his ass crack showing, and he's like, all of a sudden he sees this, and he goes, "Holy smokes, that's the Taurus! Oh my gosh!" Bam, he remembers. I don't know, but start going within, chilling the f out, and going, "All right, what's my role here?" And your role is just to be a good dude.
Well said. Well said. Lot to chew on there, Bart.
Sorry, dude. I talked
Great.
too much.
No, yeah, no, great conversation.
Thank you,
I'll
Christian.
be,
Thanks for listening.
I'll be, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been, I think you introduced me to Robert Edward Grant, so I'm going to kind of look into some of his stuff and some of the other, some of the other people out there. But yeah, no, this has been a
Again,
learned
I'll see if I
episode,
can get
another
Alan
learned
on there.
episode.
Let's see if I can get Alan on
Yeah,
there for you.
yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you,
And
Christian, and happy Veterans Day, dude.
yes, absolutely. Uh, as it relates to the Navy, of course, we were both in the Navy. What an interesting experience. And I don't really keep in touch with anybody per se, other than just on social media. I just kind of see what people are up to. But um, yeah, no, it's you are definitely in your own world when you're in the military, right? I mean, it's all encompassing, you know. So, but yeah, happy Vets Day, and be well. Hope Kathy's doing well, and we'll have to do this sometime again here before long.
Anytime, dude. Thanks.
Quick ask: over half of you who watch the show regularly haven't yet subscribed. If you've enjoyed the show, you're finding value in it, subscribing is really the best way to support the channel. It's, of course, free. It literally takes 2 seconds, and it lets the algorithm know that this content matters. And of course, my commitment to you is going to be that I'm going to continue to bring on great guests, refine those questions. And of course, I'm always receptive to your feedback. If there's certain people that you'd like to have on, or certain questions, or this, that, and the other that you'd like to have as part of the show going forward, things of that nature, please let me know. I'm pretty easy to access, Anyhow, that's my commitment to you. If you can subscribe, that would mean a lot. Thanks.